Hey guys, Slimber here, and I just wanted to say real quick before this video starts, after this video and the next video, or if the next video is on this one, then after this video, I will be done with political content. There will be an update video, and the link to that will be in the description, and you can check that out for my explanation as to why, and yeah, here you go. Hey guys, Slimber here, and today, we're doing a video on Kaitlin Bennett. This is my second video on her, my third on Liberty Hangout, with my second on Kaitlin Bennett. This is kind of a lazy video, because she's absolutely easy to respond to. It's like taking the biggest fucking retard on the planet and debating every point it makes. Like, this is going to be very easy, so here you go.
The 2020 election is heating up, and the Democratic primary has narrowed down to just two candidates. Donald Trump will definitely have his work cut out for him this November as he goes up against either Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders. Clearly some very stiff competition. But before we get cocky and assume Trump's going to win in a landslide, it's important to remember that the media said Hillary Clinton had a 98% chance of winning the 2016 election. I think most people do already have their votes decided, but a mere 3 million votes separated Trump and Clinton the last go around, and we need to make sure those people are making the right choice this November. That's why I've come up with a list of 10 reasons why you shouldn't vote for Bernie Sanders. But before I start giving you my reasons why, please visit patreon.com/Kaitlin Bennett to directly support my work and help me get security for when I go out to film. For just $5 a month, you will get access to my private Facebook group and help.
Private Facebook group? Is that like a private Snapchat, an OnlyFans?
Exposed, 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 exposed.
Me keep going out to rallies and campuses to expose the left. You can also get super cool perks such as an autographed photo in the mail every month.
Oh, she's not even texting them. She's just straight mailing the nudes to people signed.
Or your name right here in the description of every YouTube video. And make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified every time we upload a new video. So as the election heats up, Bernie Sanders seems to have a much better chance of grabbing the Democratic nomination this year rather than in 2016. And that's seriously a terrifying prospect because that man should be nowhere near the White House. Between him and Biden, the differences aren't too far off.
In what world? In what world are they not too far off? In what fucking world are Biden and Bernie super similar?
Medicare for all through the Senate in some compromised version, the Elizabeth Warren version or other version. Nancy Pelosi gets a version of it through the House of Representatives. It comes to your desk. Do you veto it?
I would veto anything that delays providing the security and the certainty of health care being available now.
Not a single solitary scientific work. You cannot get to zero emissions by 2030.
But between Bernie and Trump, they're night and day, which is why I think it's so important to highlight why Bernie Sanders' presidency is not in the interest of the average working American. Now, I could discuss how Bernie has praised communist dictators, honeymooned in the Soviet Union.
Right. It's only a problem when it's communist dictators. It's not a problem when they're fascists like Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un. It's not a problem when they're fucking fundamentalist religious zealots that force religion on people like Trump hanging out with the Saudi king. No. It's only a problem when it's communist dictators. Authoritarianism, only a problem when it's on the left.
And has some pretty vile quotes over the last few decades, but since almost everyone is well aware of those already, I thought I'd hone in more specifically on Bernie as a politician and how his policies spell doom for this country. So, here are my top 10 reasons why you should not vote for Bernie Sanders. Reason number 1. Bernie Sanders is a career politician. What attracted so many voters to Donald Trump in 2016 is the fact that he was an outsider who wasn't part of the DC swamp. Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, began his political career nearly half a century ago in 1971.
Bernie Sanders was 30 years old in 1971. What do you think he was doing in those, at least 10 years he should have been working? 10, maybe 12 years he should have been working. Huh? What do you think he was doing? Oh yeah, he was being a carpenter, a Head Start teacher, and a psychiatric aide. Those all sound like real jobs. And meanwhile, what was Trump doing? Oh yeah, getting money from his rich daddy, Oh yeah, I forgot about that part.
When he was just 30 years old, Bernie was a guy who was such a failure in the real world that he struggled to earn a real paycheck until the age of 40, and it was a government paycheck at that. According to a 2016 story from investors.com, Sanders took his first bride to live in a maple sugar shack with a dirt floor, and she soon left him. Penniless, he went on unemployment. Then he had a child out of wedlock. Desperate, he tried carpentry but could barely sink a nail. He was a carpenter, a friend told Political magazine.
So you admit it. He had a job. He had a real job. It was a carpenter, being a carpenter. Oh, I'm sorry. Are carpenters not real? Do they not have real jobs? I'm sorry, every carpenter in America. You're not doing a real job. That's not a job. No. And not everybody gets a fucking, paycheck. These probably working under the table. I know plenty of people that fucking do that.
In fact, Bernie was so bad at fitting in as a functional member of society that he was kicked out of a hippie commune in 1971 for being lazy and refusing to work. Sounds a lot like some of his supporters today, doesn't it? Since Bernie was too lazy to get a real job, he decided to try his hand at politics and make it into a professional career. Knowing this, do you really trust a guy that's been mooching off the taxpayers for most of his life to have your interests in mind?
Oh, I'm sorry, you mean the whole US government? Like pretty much every politician, including ones that you support? Yeah. Actually, hold up, I want to go back to that Bernie's never had a real job thing. Do you have a real job? You go on YouTube and spread lies or go and harass people in the streets and threaten to shoot them. That's not a real job. Carpenting is. A Head Start teacher has a real job. Being a psychiatric aide is a real job. Going around recording yourself threatening to shoot people is not a real job, Kaitlin Bennett.
Don't Trump has got to go! Hey! Ho ho!
She's gonna eat it!
The did you say to me?
You know I carry, right? Or is he only thinking about himself? And that leads me into reason number 2. Bernie Sanders has gotten super rich from politics. The guy who markets himself as a man of the people, even though he can't relate to working people since he's never worked, but desperate, he tried carpentry. Most of a $2.5 million net worth, which is nearly twice as much money as the average American will earn in their entire lifetime. And he owns not 1, not 2, but 3 homes.
So I guess we're gonna go ahead and pack that into the one bowl, smoke it, and fucking address it. So here's the deal. Bernie's net worth, $2.5 million. It's not that high compared to a lot of others in Congress or in the Senate. Bernie is, I think, one of the lowest paid senators. He made that from book sales, and that was very, very recently. And then the 3 houses. Would you like to tell us how he got those houses?
After conning teenagers into making him a millionaire in 2016, Bernie immediately purchased a $575,000 lakefront vacation home. Even Democrats like Mike Bloomberg were calling him out on this.
What a wonderful country we have. The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What I miss here?
She doesn't explain it. Okay, so Bernie has 3 houses. One is his normal house that he, I guess, usually would live in. His second one is his Washington, D.C. I guess, it's kind of like a condo or like an apartment. He's required to have it so he can have a place to stay when he's doing, Senate voting and shit like that. And the third one is something he inherited. It's like a shack almost. I guess you won't tell him that, though, will you?
And that's why Bernie went from criticizing millionaires in 2016 to criticizing just billionaires here in 2020. Because he knows he'll be a hypocrite if he talks about people who own as much wealth as him. Bernie's net worth before the 2016 election was just $800,000, and he had up to $65,000 in credit card debt. All it took was one presidential election to turn Sanders into a millionaire and get him a new lakefront home. Surely his run this time isn't also a cash grab, right? Reason number 3. Bernie Sanders is 78 years old and has ailing health. I thought I'd hone in more specifically on Bernie as a politician and how his policies spell doom for this country.
You're lying dog-faced pony soldier.
I thought you were only going after his policies or what he's done as a politician, not his age. And you could make that same argument about Trump. You could make that same argument about Biden. They're all in their, like, mid to late 70s.
During his 2020 run, Bernie Sanders has already suffered a heart attack and had an episode where he fell out of the shower and cut his head open.
Supposedly Trump had a heart attack too. What is your point that makes Trump better than Bernie?
Needless to say, Sanders is probably too old for the White House. Therefore, a vote for Bernie might really be a vote for whoever he chooses VP. Whether you like Bernie or not, there's no denying that this could be a serious issue for any candidate his age. Even the 73-year-old Donald Trump will still be younger than Bernie Sanders is today if he finishes out a second term in office.
Yeah, by barely even a year. That's what I don't get the point of this argument. Your candidate is old too. The only three candidates from the major parties left, Biden, Bernie, and Trump, are all old.
Now that we've quickly covered why Bernie is a hypocrite and why he's not trustworthy, let's move more into his policies and why they'd be harmful for the country. Reason number 4. As president, Bernie Sanders will bankrupt the country. I don't know if Bernie is just naive or if he genuinely wants to see America fail, but either way, his economic policies spell doom. There is nothing I can think of that Bernie doesn't want the government to be in charge of. He supports Medicare for all, which would cost $40 trillion.
$32 trillion, and you're being misleading because you're not mentioning that's over the course of 10 years it would cost $32 trillion.
He supports the Green New Deal, which would cost $16.3 trillion. He wants to cancel student loan debt, which would cost $3 trillion. He wants to guarantee housing for all, which would cost $2.5 trillion. He supports universal child care and preschool, which would cost $1.5 trillion. And he wants to expand Social Security by $1.8 trillion, spend $1.6 trillion on paid family leave, and spend $1 trillion on infrastructure. The scary thing is that most of these numbers are coming from his own campaign's website, so Bernie acknowledges how expensive his plan is. According to Brian Riedel, an economist from the Manhattan Institute, when you add it all up, Sanders' current plans would cost as much as $97.5 trillion over the next decade. Oh my gosh.
You pretend like he plans to just pull money out of his ass and then we're gonna pay for it. No. Obviously, he plans certain taxes, like a tax on Wall Street. I think he plans to raise taxes a little bit to pay for Medicare for all. You failed to mention that he plans to rearrange things, like take a little bit of money from our fucking overinflated military budget, like getting rid of corporate subsidies, like a lot of shit he plans to fucking... This is not something he's just gonna fucking do with, and also, Medicare for all, for example, over the next 10 years is supposed to be fucking cheaper than our current system. But no. Continue misleading everybody.
And that's in addition to the $60 trillion our government is projected to spend over the next 10 years anyway. For comparison, the GDP of the entire US is just around $19 trillion, and our country is already more than $23 trillion in debt. So yeah, we're kind of screwed if Bernie's elected president. This leads me to reason number 5 not to vote for Bernie Sanders. He loves taxes. The money for Bernie's $97.5 trillion plan isn't just going to grow off trees. He'll have to extort it from the American people. On his own website, the Sanders campaign proposes a capital gains tax and wants to increase estate taxes to 77%. He also wants to increase the top federal corporate income tax rate to 35%.
So, none of that affects me. That literally only affects rich people who should be paying more in taxes anyways.
Which it used to be under the Obama administration, but was lowered to 21% once Trump took office. Since lowering the tax rate to 21%, we've seen record low unemployment rates and economic growth under the Trump administration. Bernie Sanders cares so much about poor people that apparently he wants to put them back on the unemployment line.
Here's the thing you do also misleading. The unemployment, the jobs that are coming, are not good jobs. They're mostly minimum wage jobs. But no, we won't talk about that. And also, unemployment has not fucking gone down amazingly. It's gone down at the same rate since 2010, since Obama first got into office.
In a 2015 interview with CNBC, Sanders even floated around the idea of a 90% tax rate. When asked if he thinks that's too high, he said no.
When you think about 90%, you don't think that's obviously too high.
No.
Now here's something Kaitlin Bennett is famous for. Taking clips and trying to fuck up the context of it. Other conservatives, such as Hunter Avalone, have called her out for this. But that's probably not what he was asked. And she's just saying she took something that sounded like that, 90%, and he said no to whatever the fuck he was talking about. Because here's the deal. She isn't showing us the part where he says, do you think a 90% tax is a good idea? Or a bad idea, I guess. Sadly, she does not show you where the video came from, so you can't go find the full fucking video. I might have found it in an article, but the video was taken down, sadly.
Not only did Sanders float around the idea of a 90% tax rate, but billionaires could be taxed as high as 97.5% under a Sanders presidency, which is 3 times higher than what even Joe Biden wants to tax them. I don't care how rich you are. Imagine only getting to keep 2.5% of the money you earn. If that isn't theft, then I don't know what is.
Hey Siri, what is 2.5% of $1 billion?
I found an answer. It's displayed on your iPhone.
25 million. That's more money than I've ever seen in my lifetime. If you're keeping 25 million, you're still pretty well off. I don't feel bad for you. Fuck you. And the thing is, Bernie isn't actually proposing that. I'm not even actually for that. But at the same time, if that were to happen, fuck you, you're still getting $25 million. That's a lot of fucking money. And that's only if you're literally just like $1 billion. If you make more than that, like for example, here, Bloomberg has a $16 billion wealth. Let's see how much he'd pay if he made $16 billion a year. What is 2.5% of $16 billion?
The answer is 400 million.
Oh no, he'll be in poverty. Oh. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and end this video, guys. Call me a leftist piece of shit. And yeah, Slimber out.